the reality here is you're dealing with an unpredictable terror organization called Hamas that has a goal to still destroy Israel. And that is why, again, if you look at the first point of this plan, and especially the point we're looking at now, Hamas, as a condition of this deal, has to demilitarize and be eradicated from the Gaza Strip by either requesting amnesty, turning in their weapons, or leaving the Gaza Strip. And what gives some real bite to this deal is the fact that President Trump, the head of the strongest country in the entire world, is making guarantees. Now, how exactly he's going to go about doing this, we don't know in Israel. What I can tell you is that 53% of Gaza is controlled by Israel.
Folks, Dave Smith spoke to Doron Spielman on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has platformed people like Dave for the entirety of this war. And it's interesting because Dave comes from a place of, I'm just a comedian, just sharing my opinion and with what I read and what I understand. But when he's confronted, and we've seen this with Douglas, we've seen this with Coleman Hughes, which one of my favorites in this space. We've seen him when he gets confronted with information from people who are here in Israel. There's something about Dave that is reluctant to process it as being real. I think that's because he has such a confirmation bias when he's around people like Joe Rogan and Piers 24/7 and the fame that he has built. So let's take a look at this video today. I'm the other Barak. I'm coming to you live and direct here from the Holy Land in Israel. It is Shabbat. It is a beautiful Saturday. And if you are brand new, welcome. It would mean the world to me if you could press that subscribe button and that bell icon below so that you are notified when we put content out.
The big concern that people have is that you've got a bunch of rebels now swarming around Gaza, Hamas trying to control them, succeeding and failing in equal measure. And there's a bit of chaos there. And in the crossfire are IDF, and you're seeing some IDF soldiers being killed. And then Israel is reacting with force and killing a lot of Palestinians. So this ceasefire has not actually been a complete ceasefire already. And the fear is that it won't take a lot to send the Israeli forces back into full action, not least because you have people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich in the government who are urging them to do exactly that right now. So, I mean, how confident are you that this, as J.D. Vance says, it's not 100% obviously, but are you as optimistic as he is that this ceasefire will lead to a lasting peace?
Good to see you, Pierce. I actually think here I would more side on the side of Donald Trump. Again, we're hearing two voices. I don't know if they're coordinated or not coming out of the White House. They both, to some degree, reflect reality. There is promise that this is moving forward. There has been less fighting. We've seen that Hamas has been slowly handing over the bodies of dead Israelis. It's a miracle that they brought home the 20 hostages. But the reality here is you're dealing with an unpredictable terror organization called Hamas that has a goal to still destroy Israel. And that is why, again, if you look at the first point of this plan, and especially the point we're looking at now, Hamas, as a condition of this deal, has to demilitarize and be eradicated from the Gaza Strip by either requesting amnesty, turning in their weapons, or leaving the Gaza Strip. And what gives some real bite to this deal is the fact that President Trump, the head of the strongest country in the entire world, is making guarantees. Now, how exactly he's going to go about doing this, we don't know in Israel. What I can tell you is that 53% of Gaza is controlled by Israel. We know the enemy. We understand the enemy's tactics. The enemy just killed, as you mentioned, 2 of our soldiers in violation of this treaty. What Dave said, that the killing is going on, of course, we're not randomly killing anybody. We're trying to kill Hamas terrorists. And when there's an action that Hamas is approaching Israelis, as we know, unfortunately, sometimes civilians are in that area because that's how Hamas works. But you're looking at a deal with Hamas. There's 2 sides to the deal. When Hamas is one of the sides of the deal, there's no guarantee until they're gone, Pierce. Right now, there is
the problem. I mean, I would say the problem. Coming back to you, Dave. I mean, I don't quibble actually with what Doron said there particularly, but I would say the exact same thing applies the other way. Right, that there are people in that Israeli cabinet like Ben-Gvir absolutely itching to restart the fighting. In fact, they don't think it should have stopped. You know, he actually said at the weekend I call on the Prime Minister to order the IDF to renew full-scale fighting in the Strip at full strength. The false belief that Hamas will change its ways or will even abide by the agreement it signed are proving, unsurprisingly, to be dangerous to our security. This Nazi terrorist organization must be destroyed completely, and the sooner the better. And the problem with that is, Donald Trump has put a lot of political capital and been successful getting the hostages out, but he's putting capital on a level of trust with Hamas leadership that they do actually want to bring this to an end. But at the same time, he's got senior Israelis in the government there who want the complete opposite. So, there is a lot of distrust on both sides here.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I don't know. I guess at this point in time, years later, I just can't even believe that you can say things like, well, look, this is a terrorist group that wants to destroy Israel. I mean, look, the reality we're looking at is that Gaza has been destroyed. And, Piers, you're absolutely right to call out people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and other far-right members of the government. But look, just the Israeli government in general. Look, I thought this was like a perfect example that kind of sums up the whole conflict and what people like me and you have been talking about for quite a while, Piers. So last week, when Israel, after the ceasefire first goes into effect, when Israel accuses Hamas of slow rolling, getting back the remains of dead hostages. All the living hostages have been gotten at this point, but the remains of dead hostages, they say they're slow rolling at. So they immediately say we're going to have the aid that's coming into Gaza. Just after this latest blow up 24 hours ago, Israel announced they're going to suspend aid and distribution. That is the way in which Israel conducts this war. Don't give me any of this BS about there just happen to be some innocent people there. You literally punish the civilian population by denying them aid for the crimes of what Hamas has done, which, by the way, have not even been demonstrated. It's just Israel says Hamas was slow rolling this, or they claim that Hamas violated the ceasefire when there's reporting that contradicts that, but who knows? It's in the cloud of war right now. It's hard to know for sure. But either way, the fact that you just punish the civilian population, Israel has destroyed all of Gaza. Jared Kushner, the Jewish family friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, pro-Israel, representing the most pro-Israel administration in the history of the United States of America. Even he said it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off. People are sleeping in tents. So, Piers, me and you, we've been hearing now for 2 years that, essentially Hamas uses these people as human shields. Hamas, they're essentially fair game, and it's on Hamas if they get killed. Israel really doesn't want to, but they're human shields, nothing else we could do. But then you look up and the entire thing is destroyed, and they're denying aid as a weapon of war, a clear example of collective punishment. Now, I'm sure my opponent here would disagree with it being characterized as a genocide, but what do you call that, Piers? You've decided an entire people are just fair game because they're human shields with no onus on you to demonstrate that there were Hamas weapons in every single one of these buildings that we destroyed or anything like that. And you can also just deny aid to a people who have just been decimated for 2 years as a punishment for what their government's done. And then you still have the nerve to call them terrorists and say they want the destruction of Israel. It's just too much for any reasonable person.
I mean, yeah, look, I would say that in relation to Hamas, if you're an Israeli and you remember what happened on October the 7th because you lost people who died that day or were kidnapped or whatever it may be, the scale of what happened that day was on a different level to anything we've seen in a single day in the entire 75-year conflict between Israel and Palestine. And it displayed to me not just a terrorist view of indiscriminately killing anyone they could get their hands on, but a kind of nihilistic view, right? So I can understand actually why Israelis have a deep distrust of anyone related to running Hamas. I get that.
Yeah, no,
but I don't think it's intellectually honest to say the scale of Israel's response has been massively disproportionate. The two things can be equally true.
I think that's right.
The weird part about this, and this is why it's hard for me with people like Piers Morgan, because I don't know, man, you can change your opinion about conflicts. You can change your opinion about Israel-Palestine, but changing your opinion about this particular topic to the extent that he has changed his opinion about it it's weird. It's awkward, it's weird, and it's unreliable, and it's fishy. Do you or do you not think that what Israel has done and how they have conducted their response, is it proportional? Is it appropriate? And does it abide by international law? Yes or no? You can't go from yes to no, back to yes to no to yes to no to yes, or to no. That's what it feels like sometimes with somebody like him. It's the danger of platforming people.
And of course, who would think any Israeli would trust Hamas? But the other thing here, I was just reading earlier today, Haaretz had a piece about how essentially the Israeli government is very frustrated because there is no counter to Hamas that's rising, and there aren't as many protests as they think. There aren't as many rival gangs, and Hamas still has control of all this area. But Pierce, just think about what the implication of that is. How many times have me and you been told over the last 2 years, by your guest right here in particular, that it is intolerable for Hamas to still be in power, and therefore we have to do whatever we can. And yet they've done all of this, killed tens of thousands of innocent people, destroyed the entire Gaza Strip, and Hamas is still in power. So even by their own logic, you failed on what the goal of this war was. And by the way, Pierce, as you know, I've been sitting here, I'm sorry, it's a little frustrating. I've been sitting here for 2 years telling people, you're not going to destroy Hamas this way. And every one of them said, what do you know, comedian? You're not an expert. And yet here we are at the end of the 2 years, then all the people, I'm not the only one, we're all totally vindicated. Hamas is still, he didn't even achieve the goal.
Yeah, Doron Spielman, we were told, look, once the hostages are all released, this is over. That clearly, at the moment, is hanging in the balance. I think it's obvious it wouldn't take a lot for this to flare up again. But what is indisputable, as Dave says, there's no sign that Hamas has lost all its power. They're operating with power in Gaza right now. They're still heavily armed. They have said publicly, we are not going to disarm. So, it seems to me that the original aim of releasing the hostages is one thing, but this idea that Israel has defeated Hamas is clearly not true. So where does that leave this ceasefire other than in a very precarious place? If Hamas just say, we are not disarming, what does Israel do?
First of all, Pierce, I want to speak to some of the things that Dave just said. When it comes to the fog of war, Dave, I hear that you're saying anytime it's Hamas directly targeting Israeli soldiers, directly targeting civilians, it's the fog of war. You're saying that's the fog of war. But when it comes to Israel targeting Hamas, you still refuse to accept the basic principle. There was no Wannsee conference here. Israel's not committing genocide. There's no ethnic cleansing because they're Gazans. We have one goal, Dave, one simple goal: to destroy Hamas and bring home our hostages. And all of a sudden, it's not the fog of war, Dave. It is your fog. You're unwilling to understand the most basic principle here, that there's probably never been a more moral war fought by an army that does not want to go to war. What's the proof? It's exactly what you're saying. As soon as we got the hostages home, as soon as President Trump put a deal on the table, it's not a perfect deal. What was the very first thing we did? We withdrew exactly to the yellow border. We exactly gave time for Hamas to return the 20 living hostages and the 29 bodies. One second, Dave. One second. I let you speak.
Over dead
one second, Dave. I did let you speak.
Most moral army.
Just give me
sorry. Go ahead.
One second, if you don't mind. We waited. They just killed 2 of our soldiers. There was no fog of war. These 2 boys were sitting outside a tank, walking around. They were shot by an RPG and killed in cold blood. When I listen to you, it doesn't sound like we're dealing with Hamas. It sounds like we're dealing with a bunch of kindergarten children that are out to play in the playground. This is an organization who crossed the border, and you say that you condemn October 7th, but both you and Pierce, if I may say so, you constantly say you condemn October 7th, but you also condemn every moment from then that we've tried to defend ourselves to go after Hamas.
No, that's not true. Hang on. Doron. You can't say that about me. I'm sorry. For many, many, many months, after this started, I repeatedly was attacked actually by pro-Palestinians because they felt that I was giving too much license for Israel to exercise its right to defend itself, which I felt was a duty, a moral duty to its people, because Hamas had said we're going to keep trying to do this. And they had an absolute right to defend themselves.
Do we not have a moral duty now,
my criticism of the Israeli government and its strategy really became a lot more critical this year, at the start of this year, when I began to see that it was not achieving its goals. It wasn't getting Hamas destroyed. It wasn't actually getting the hostages released. It was leading to what I think are going to end up being categorized as war crimes, like the 3-month blockade. It was leveling Gaza to complete obliteration. And I felt this was A, completely disproportionate, but B, and probably even more significantly, it wasn't achieving the initial war goals. And coupled with that, we have people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir openly talking about their desire for ethnic cleansing.
Smotrich and Ben-Gvir,
hang on, I know.
That's a red herring.
Hang on. All the Israeli
Prime
guests,
Minister Netanyahu runs the government.
all the Israeli guests I have on always say you should ignore 2 senior members of the Israeli government.
It's a democracy.
And I'm sorry.
We made the deal.
I'm sorry. It's a bit like
They're in the
people saying.
government.
It's a bit like people saying in Britain with the British government, just ignore what the Chancellor says. Ignore what the Foreign Secretary
they're not
says.
the Chancellor. They have no power.
These people are senior members of the government. They have an influence over Netanyahu. No
because
question.
It's a democracy. But if they have an influence, Pierce, then how is it? You're saying both things and they're opposites. If they have influence, we just said that Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to an imperfect deal presented by President Trump, even though Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and many people in Israel, including myself, including you, as we opened up, I think even including Dave, saying, what does it mean we're not winning? It means that this is not a great deal. We don't see Hamas completely obliterated. I agree with you. I agree with Dave. Hamas is still in Gaza. How did that happen? Because Prime Minister Netanyahu is betting on President Trump. So am I. President Trump just announced that he sees Arab allies that also say they're going to go into Gaza and teach Hamas a lesson if they don't straighten out. What are we to do but rely on the word of the most powerful man in the entire world? And I'm hoping that that man is going to find a way to dismantle and destroy Hamas. It is point number 1 and point number 9 in the deal that we signed. And if he goes and does it, we'll have achieved 2 goals. We got our hostages home. Many of them are dead because Hamas are cruel bastards. Most of them are alive. And if we can continue the goal of wiping Hamas out of Gaza, we can rebuild Gaza. But it's these conversations when, no, you're killing, you can't kill, you can't fight back. If we listen to these, Pierce, I would have raised the white flag. We would have raised the white flag. 2 years ago, Hamas would be fully in charge of Gaza and all of our hostages would still be there. This has been incredibly successful, but no, it's not perfect. Yeah. The fact that it's not perfect does not mean that we have not achieved an enormous amount and that we cannot win. Victory, it sounds like an ancient word, is in our grasp. It depends on President Trump if he's willing to go the extra mile.
All right, Dave Smith, I want to read what Trump posted on Truth Social. Numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity at my request to go into Gaza with a heavy force and straighten out Hamas if Hamas continues to act badly in violation of their agreement with us. The love and spirit of the Middle East has not been seen like this in 1,000 years. It's a beautiful thing to behold. I told these countries and Israel, not yet. There is still hope that Hamas will do what is right. If they do not, an end to Hamas will be fast, furious, and brutal. I would like to thank all of those countries that called to help. Also, I'd like to thank the great and powerful country of Indonesia and its wonderful leader for all the help they have shown and given to the Middle East, and to USA, to everyone. Thank you for your attention in this matter, President Trump. So he's coming under a lot of pressure, clearly, to potentially commit American forces to engage, it seems from this post, with Israel to finish the job with Hamas. I mean, that would be, to me, a massive and potentially extremely problematic escalation if that was to happen.
So the thing about this conflict is, and I've been talking about this like lose-lose situation for Israel for forever. Israel's always in a lose-lose, you know what I mean? Like, they could have conducted the war perfectly to the standards of how war should be conducted, and there's no such thing. You can't mention to me a perfect war, but let's say they did. You'd still have the pro-Palestinian movement and those against the state of Israel finding ways to poke holes at how it wasn't perfect. So no matter how humane Israel is, no matter what they've done to limit civilian casualty, no matter what they've done to make sure that they are debunking the lies, no matter what they've done to make sure that they're protecting innocent civilians, no matter what they've done to make sure that they're trying to mitigate anything that doesn't have to do with Hamas itself, no matter what they've done to try and create humanitarian corridors for those who no matter what they do, your family across the world says, no, I'm not going to look at what they're really doing. I'm going to look at what I want them to be doing, which is not the right thing. And that is the mechanism that Israel has to go up against every day, with this friction of people who will not give them a fucking go. They will not give them a green pass. It's exhausting, fam, chat. It's exhausting to have to relay more and more of the boots on the ground reality, because it's exhausting because I know it's real, and I know it's real because I live here. It's like if I was talking out of my ass, I'd be like, I'm a good fucking liar. I'm a damn good liar. Barack's a good liar, yo. But I'm not. I'm not. And it would be awkward and embarrassing if I had a catalog of 2 years of content, pumping content out of me lying for 2 years. I don't know how the fuck I would go to my deathbed with that. That's because I know I'm a good person. But there's a lot of people who are. There's a lot of people who are. I'm just glad I'm not one of those people. So let me know what you think about Dave Smith in the comments. Links in the description below to help support this channel. Here's a note from me. Here are 4 ways you can help us grow if you believe in our mission. On Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal, you can directly contribute to helping this message grow and reach more people across the world. If you want to join the inner circle, join our Patreon with different tiers, and of course, our Discord community, which is free with people from all across the world. The links to every single one are in the description. And last but not least, to the other Barack community, I love you. Ani ohev otchem. I'll see you guys next time.